Hello and welcome to Always Elite. Today we're going to review Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill pay-per-view that came from Dallas, Texas. Now overall this show was so-so, maybe a little better than that. It all got good in the end, but let's go through the whole thing. First match was Ken Shamrock versus Madman Fulton. Shamrock tried to get an early submission, but Fulton countered it. I mean, it must have been 10-15 seconds maybe into the match. It was real early. For those who don't know, Ken Shamrock was the first inductee into the UFC Hall of Fame. He was a very dominant striker and submission-based guy in UFC. He was in the early days when they did tournaments instead of actually organized fighting. But he was very good at what he did. Later in the match, Fulton takes control after Jake Crist interferes. And then Shamrock dislocates Fulton's shoulder from a Kimura lock. It was pretty ugly. As you can see here, he actually popped it out of place. He applied it a little bit differently too than usually like Brock Lesnar or they do normally to try to actually break the arm. He actually did it so that it popped the shoulder, which I think was kind of cool. I mean, you could clearly see that his shoulder was. And then Fulton just taps out to an arm bar after Shamrock dislocates his arm. So, there's nothing you can really do after it's dislocated. Next was the Impact X Division Championship match. It was Trey of the Rascals versus Ace Austin, who was the champ. Trey just beats the crap out of Ace early. Wants to get back at Ace for what he said about his mother. Ace had a very good single leg Boston Crab on Trey, but he gets out. Ace hits the fold, which is his finisher. I don't even know what the hell it is. It happened so fast I didn't get to see much of it. And he gets a pin for the win, so he retains his title. Next up is the Impact Knockouts Championship match between Jordan Grace, ODB, and Taya, who was the champ still after 370 days, I believe it was. ODB starts fast, takes out both Grace and Taya very, very quickly. Taya tries a submission, which is definitely not her style. I guess she's pulling out all the stops this time to retain her title because she knows she's behind the 8-ball in a three-way match. In the end, Grace with the Grace driver, but John E. Bravo gets involved and Taya takes advantage and pins ODB to retain her Knockouts Championship. So her historic reign continues at 371 days. Next was RVD versus Brian Cage. Now I have to say this should have been a good match, but as you'll see, it didn't turn out that good. RVD attacks early, driving Cage's shoulder into the ring post a few times, which plays a role into it later. RVD with the Van Terminator with the chair. Ref tries to stop the match after that because it just looks like Cage is knocked out completely and he's bleeding from the mouth, and it looked like he took a pretty bad shot there. Daga comes out and tries to check on Cage. Ref finally calls the match to be over, but Daga takes his place, so it's going to be Daga versus RVD. Daga comes back with a flying leap to the outside after they brawl, and he gets RVD on the outside. But with Katie Forbes' help, RVD with a 5-star frog splash and a 1-2-3 for the win. Next is Michael Elgin versus Eddie Edwards for the Call Your Shot trophy, which is a trophy that it's basically like the briefcase in WWE, the Money in the Bank briefcase. Basically, you can trade in the trophy for any title shot you want. They used to do that with the X Division title, but I guess they didn't want to do that anymore. Typical star from Michael Elgin, strong style that he's used to from Japan, because he was over there for quite a while working with them and using their style, and it worked very effectively. Eddie just can't get anything started the way Michael uses all his Japanese techniques that he's been used to for so long. Eddie finally turns around with a suplex over the top rope to the floor. It looked ugly. It looked like they both landed wrong, but I don't know. Eddie tries to match Michael's strong style, but eventually it does work. Eventually he does gain the upper hand. Michael hits a super German suplex, a splash mountain bomb to Eddie, but Eddie just won't quit. To finish it up, Michael Elgin buckle bomb, but Eddie reverses an Elgin bomb into a pin for the win. So he retains his Call Your Shot trophy. Next was Rhino versus Moose. I didn't care for this match too much. This match was kind of boring. Although it was fast at the start and it was unique, but I just didn't care for it. Moose is not a very good wrestler, and Rhino's just too damn old. Moose hits a spear early, but Rhino rolls out of the ring so he can't be pinned. Moose uses a chair on the outside to immobilize Rhino. Now this is a no DQ match. I forgot to mention that. It is a no DQ match. Rhino with a power bomb through a table, and then Rhino suplex onto a pile of chairs in the ring. This happened within about a minute of each other. Rhino gored Moose through the table, but the ref was pulled out in front of Rhino, so he hit the ref and Moose and put them both through a table, so there's no ref to count the 1, 2, 3. In the end, another spear to Rhino, and Moose picks up the win, which, like I said, it was nothing special. It was actually a boring match, believe it or not. The next match was the Impact Tag Team Championship match between the North, Ethan Page, and Josh Alexander versus Willie Mack, and it was supposed to be Rich Swann, but he got injured on Friday before the event, so he couldn't compete. Well, as expected, the 2-on-1 matchup in the North are going to beat up on Willie all day long, and they did for the majority of that match. Probably not about 90% of that match was taken by the North. Willie tries to make a comeback late. Willie hits a 6-star frog splash, but the ref gets pulled out before the pin attempt. In the end, the North 2-on-1 finally beats down Willie enough, and they get the pin for the win. And the main event was the Impact World Championship match between Tessa Blanchard and Sami Callihan, who was the champ. Sami doesn't wait for the bell, attacks Tessa right away and delivers a pile driver and tries to pin Tessa, but Tessa kicks out. Shortly thereafter, Tessa hits a Magnum, and she does the same, tries to pin Sami, but Sami gets right out. So this is all within like the first minute of the match. Excuse me. Sami's working on Tessa's knees, but Tessa refuses to give up. I don't know why he's working on the knees, but it just seems kind of weird because his finisher is the pile driver, so why not work on the head? I think that was his mistake. Tessa hits a Magnum on the apron. Sami falls to the floor. Both get back in before the 10 count. Sami with the get out of here. It looked pretty nasty. Sammy late with a submission. I don't know why he's trying to use a submission. I've never known Sammy to be a submission wrestler, but I guess anything to retain his title. Sammy tries to use brass knuckles behind the ref's back, but Tessa with a low blow. And then another magnum. But Sammy hits another pile driver shortly after. But again, Tessa kicks out. Tessa hits 2 Canadian destroyers. Then a buzzsaw DDT and gets the 1-2-3. Tessa becomes only the second woman to win the Men's World Championship and the first woman to win the Impact World Championship. That's one hell of a way to end the night. Congratulations, Tessa. Well, that's all I have time for you today. Join me again. Always be elite.
Never look back, no, never say die. Always attack with the